Hello. I'm really sorry about this delay, but it's been back-to-back sessions and meetings, and I just need to go over there and come back very quickly. So welcome to this session, which is really a conversation between me and Alexandra Buchler and Nita Gupta, who is, to my mind, really the most knowledgeable person about the whole market of translations in India. But also she knows a lot about the festivals, about all those places where connections are created. India has a few book fairs, but they're not really the most important places where professionals meet. It's for professionals and for writers and audiences to meet. You have to go to one of the fabulous festivals. And so we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about how translations happen both in Europe, so we'll kind of have a quite a wide perspective, and in India, and what these two continents have in common is multilingualism. And of course India leads. It leads in many ways because there are many more languages spoken there than in Europe, and they are spoken by very large numbers of people. So when we invited the Icelandic author Sean, who has this very nice way of putting it, you know, there are no small languages, there are just languages spoken by a limited number or small number of people. So when he was in India, he kept saying, when he was talking to the audiences, he said, because his language, the language he writes in, is spoken by only a little more than 300,000 people. So he kept saying, I think you don't understand small numbers, you know, just think about it, 300,000. So we will look at which are these spaces, these hubs where people meet so that translations can happen. Now, Nita, just to introduce her briefly, she is someone who is on faculty of Ashoka University, which it's a university north of Delhi, and it has translation studies, a translation center actually, and you're part of that. And it also has quite a famous course in creative writing where very well-known writers teach. Nita also is the editor of Anuvad, the Journal of Literary Translation, and she used to manage this wonderful program at the famous Jaipur Book Fair, and it was called the Jaipur Bookmark, which was basically a B2B program where professionals met, and it was also an oasis of peace because the Jaipur Book Fair, the Jaipur Festival can be a very busy place with lots of people milling around. So what else? Have I forgotten? You're a publisher, of course, and you brought together an important network of Indian language publishers during the pandemic, and it was something that started to bring them together online. And the aim was for them to get to know each other better and to exchange rights, to trade rights, because there is still a sense that there's not enough translation between Indian languages. So Nita, maybe we'll start with India rather than I wanted to start with Europe, but let's not be Eurocentric. And maybe you can tell us about how translation happens within India and between India and, let's say, the rest of the world.
So thank you, Alexandra, and thank you to this lovely festival for allowing me the space to share my learnings, let's say, because I've worked at various levels of, actually working as a translator, as an editor of translations, as somebody who has been, increasingly as a publisher of translations, and now increasingly as a facilitator for translation. So I would really call myself somebody who does the matchmaking for translators and publishers and rights agents and and especially I think the relationship that I share with publishers in the Indian languages, I think that's where my strength lies, because they really trust that if I suggest something, or if if there is something that I feel I've heard and I share that with them, they do trust that I'm coming from a place of honesty and that I'm not trying to create sort of dissension or suggest something which is out of line. So I think increasingly, as you were talking about the Jaipur Literature Festival, it's really for me, I've seen the international festival circuit grow from the Nimrana festival, which happened in 2002, when it was really the first of its kind in the international sense. And then Jaipur started with literally 30 people sitting under a tree. It was literally that, sitting around, having a drink, talking about books, and then from there to nearly 1 million people footfall in that 5 days. Now over the last 20 years that it's grown. So but having said that, Jaipur has given birth to a number of festivals. There are more than 150 now international festivals happening across India, in multiple festivals happening in one city, like say Chandigarh, Lucknow, small towns, Bhopal. Each of these cities is now hosting 2 or 3 festivals in a year. So it's something which has really caught the imagination of Indian readers and organizers and also the sponsors. But I would just step back a little bit and say this was a traditional way that Indians consumed literature, let's say. It is something which happened hundreds of years ago as well. There was a kind of royal patronage for literary discussions and conversations, and there is records of these kind of what was said by so and so in some such and such festival, and these are actually available. It was of course more philosophical discussions, and they were trying to determine the truth. So it was a sort of, and I'm sure this is what we are doing even today at a festival like Jaipur. It's not just literature or any other festival. We are getting to, whether we're looking at the scientific side of it, we're looking at, astrophysical, we're looking at all kinds of people are there. There are politicians, there's writers, there's poets, everyone is contributing to a certain kind of way of thinking that is coming from there, which is, right now it feels like it's all sort of, Jaipur is the place it's all started, but let's really go back and agree and accept that this is a way that has been traditional in India. And also it's if you look at other languages like Assamese, for instance, it's a language which is spoken by maybe just 5 million people, or really small number for India, because we have Hindi which is spoken by 650 million people. Which doesn't mean that 650 million books are sold. It just means that there are 650 million speakers of one language in India. And there is a language like Assamese, which has traditionally had literature festivals and attended by hundreds and thousands for at least 80 years or 75 years of, let's say, since India became independent. It is an established, their book festival is an established part of their cultural calendar. Kolkata, the Kolkata Boy Mela, they call it, is a book festival, which is a sales it's just a selling fair. It's not, they've added these little bits now of conversations and rights sales and all that. But it was a hardcore book selling festival, and it's one of Asia's largest, accepted as one of Asia's largest book festivals. So it is something which is, I think, and I also wanted to say that people are surprised when they go to India, they see the bookstores, and the bookstores only have English books. And they say, but what happens? I mean, where are the other books? Where are the books written in your own languages? And it's true that those books don't make it to the bookstore shelves, but this is where they are sold. At these, there are, in Bengal, West Bengal, where Kolkata is the capital, they have at least, I think, 900 book fairs and festivals in little villages across just that small state of Bengal, which is about 8 million or 9 million speakers, or 80 million, sorry. I'm sorry, this is really... So, because I confuse between the crore, which we use as a denomination, and the million. So, it is incredible that when you see this kind of, little fairs where, you'll have toys, you have whatever being sold, but books are a major part of these fairs, of these. So it is something interesting, because at one level we are considered not so literate in the English speaking world, but actually in their own languages there's deep love and respect for literature and reading, and it's quite wonderful when you go there. They're simple people. They'll be wearing just a little little dhoti, which is just a thing which you literally tie it up, and then he'll actually be a big award-winning writer. And he'll be so simple. He'll just be carrying on little and not even be bothered. And they come to festivals like Jaipur, and of course it happens, there are hierarchies where, the Nobel laureates and all of them are sitting on a higher table. And then there are these other simple writers who may be really famous, but nobody knows them outside of their language. So I'm just coming in here to say my job is to give them an equal status across the world. And I'm trying to do that in whatever small way I can, to take Perumal Murugan is a breakout successful writer from Tamil, but there are 100 more behind him, or in Malayalam, or, who are really simple people, but really good writers. And my aim is to find them, and let's take them to international festivals and to places where people will really appreciate their writing. Like Europe, for instance. I feel Europe is really open to the idea of these wonderful writers in their, in that, there's a sensitivity towards these languages and writers, and I'd love to bring writers here to this festival, for instance.
So, how would you describe where things are at now in terms of translation between the Indian languages, and also which authors you mentioned, one who writes in Tamil and who is very much promoted by his publisher, who is a kind of important figure in the publishing world, but how much do we know about these authors? Because I don't think this is happening yet, and what can we do for them to be better known and to be translated? And there are various initiatives that are now helping for that to happen. Also in Britain, in the States, and so on. Simply looking at how much more can be translated into English to start with, and then, like with what we were saying earlier, this can make the books travel more. Yeah.
So for the writers, what we try to do, this is going back to what you mentioned, the publishers exchange that we set up during the pandemic. We just realized that bookstores were closed, and we had no idea. A lot of the English language publishers had most of their list, front list, back list, available in ebook formats and available in audio formats and things, but the Indian language publishers hadn't yet made that shift. So in that period, we just came together as a community. And one of the things that, apart from doing those conversions into audio formats, and in fact actually converting to audio, really we learned a lesson that the Indian languages were really ready to receive books in audio form, because it suddenly became easy to, so that was one of the successes of our small collaboration. But the thing that we tried to do, and which I've failed, and when I was watching the Layla site, I was thinking, oh my God, we were trying to do the same thing, but we didn't succeed as well. But one of the things we did was we set up a website where we gave space to all the publishers to put up 3 of their best books. So we said, you choose, because we couldn't read in their languages, so we cannot choose for each other. It's so different. So we told them, we gave them a format. This is going to be the design format. You choose the 3 books, and you can keep changing it. So you can put up 3 books for 6 months. You put up another 3 books 6 months later. The idea was that these books would then be, and to make sure that they had proper blurbs and proper, like a synopsis in English, so that anybody from across the world accessing that website, of course, I'm going to just go back and copy everything. You can shoot me later, but I'll be gone. So the idea was to just make sure that books you've never heard of, and you should have heard of, because we're all living in the same country, and they should have been reviewed somewhere in some, literary journals, or even if a translation was not available, somebody who had read it in Kannada could surely have reviewed it in a literary journal somewhere, and it should have made the rounds that look at this book. It should. So we put this out there, and I think this was initially everybody did that. They all shared, but then it sort of just, when the pandemic and the bookstores opened, then everybody just got busy with it. I'm not blaming them, because it is a lot of work, and most of these independent publishing houses from the languages and in the various Indian languages are one man, one woman shows. So, you're just one person doing everything. So I can understand it's not easy to concentrate. And also to get really good, high quality translations is an expensive thing. People do use AI. I know a lot of people. For instance, there is a wonderful Tamil thinker, Periyar, who wrote anti-caste pamphlets in his time in the 1960s and 70s. And these pamphlets, believe it or not, have never been translated into other Indian languages. So the Tamil Nadu government, because they are really pro publishing and pro liberal thought and taking on these they took up the task of translating all of Periyar's papers into multiple Indian languages. And what did they do? Their publishers, who were given the contracts and paid hefty amount of money to do it, they just put it online on AI, and they just converted it to multiple Indian languages without bothering to get it done. There are so many translators, and there are so many people who cared about Periyar's writing and who would have done a really good job in multiple languages, but they just used AI and they just put it out there. And then everybody said, what is this nonsense? Because when each of those language readers read some, they said, what is this? It means nothing, because it was just saying Periyar wore pink underwear or something in their language. It just made no sense. So then they came to us at the Ashoka Center for Translation, and then we put together genuine, authentic translators who cared about that work and who translated it. So, there is this gap somewhere. People are trying to do something slapdash. They're trying to just get away with, making a quick buck, and I'm out of here. And it is part of our culture. I agree. I mean, even I would probably do that if somebody gave me $1 million and said, just tomorrow morning, give me a translation. Maybe I would do the same and then run away somewhere. And I run away and swim in, the and just get away from there. But it is something which is there is a thing that, where we're cheating ourselves, really. I mean, it's nothing, cheating anyone else. We're cheating ourselves of our own literature by doing this kind of. But it is, so this Ashoka Center that, we spoke about, we are trying to really not standardize, but professionalize that whole, just make it worth the while for translators. Make sure you have really good mentorship to translators. Get them good pricing, get good rates for translating, because in India it's abysmal. The rates for translations are abysmal. I mean, if you even think about it, you cannot survive working as a translator. So I think what we're trying to do here is make sure they get a part of the royalties for sale, things like that. And it's odd that it's not even
they
available.
get a contract, actually.
And a contract, yes. Okay, I am working on contracts every day. Every day and I'm making sure that the wording is so simple that everybody can understand and access, and it's easy to then stick by those clauses. So actually contracts is a very big thing, because nobody was working with contracts in India. It was just even authors, it was just a gentleman's deal that, and they would just get a gift around Christmas or Diwali, a box of sweets. They were getting no royalty. There is one of the most famous authors in India in Hindi, Vinod Kumar Shukla, whose books are published randomly by any publisher because he didn't sign proper contracts. He didn't know. He just sent books, manuscripts to publishers saying, this is ready, would you be interested in publishing? They went ahead, published. He doesn't earn any royalty, and he's a wonderful writer. He's a writer's writer. He'll write for children, he'll write for an 80-year-old. Everyone accesses his work because it's so beautiful, but he gets no royalty. So this is a problem. The contract issue is a very big issue in India, which we are changing. I mean, we are all of us in our generation are really making sure that, we to inform the right authors, inform the translators what is your due. You can have a share in the royalties if so things like that. Making them aware of their rights is part of it all comes together with that.
And I mean, I've also heard of cases where an author agreed with a translator to start translating their work, then they got an offer from somewhere else, and because they didn't have a contract, and of course these contracts can be multi-way contracts, so it is complicated. But if you find yourself, and specifically I know of a very famous author and an excellent translator who found himself in that situation, that they had been working on a book which they nearly finished, which was a massive book, and then suddenly the author said, no, actually I'm giving it to someone else. So this can happen. So contracts, you have to repeat it. But have you been doing this kind of work through the network that you created, the exchange, to kind of talk about to the publishers about the standards that they should be observing, really?
Yes, this was something, in fact, when we were in the lockdown phase, we were meeting weekly, and we would have people come to us from other geographies, from other countries, from all over the world, giving the publishers, the Indian language publishers, and this slowly included also publishers from Sri Lanka, from Bangladesh, from Nepal. We had some people who were signing in to our Facebook page also from Pakistan, but none of them joined the meetings. But it was completely open to the entire subcontinent, and I think a lot of people took something from that. I mean, they were really good sessions. Really, I mean, agents would come and talk to us. A festival, Frankfurt Book Fair came and spoke to us. Other book fairs internationally with, what do you do? How do you, because a lot of them had never been to Frankfurt because they were too small to have afforded a stall. But in that year, we did manage to, we started doing stall bookings in such a way that 3 publishers were taking over a stall and, sharing costs. So 6 of them, or the Publishers Exchange, took up a stall 2 years in a row, where then they just, had a few books each. But it opened up their universe, and it opened up, I'd like to believe it opened up their minds to, a more international way and a more sort of a globally aligned kind of a professional.
So do you have any concrete examples, or do you have any figures about what this initiative has achieved in terms of actual exchanges of rights, or publishers, Indian publishers buying rights to publish and translate authors from another Indian language? Do you have any figures on
So
that?
we do have, but of course it's the same usual suspects like Kannan Sundaram. He's a Tamil publisher, very, very, hands-on and very aggressive, I would say. He managed to, through this, sell rights for at least, say 9 books to Marathi, 12 books to Hindi, and so on. And because it was of course, everybody had the opportunity, but he had a really good writer on it. Because Perumal Murugan has made a nice name for himself internationally, has been shortlisted, longlisted, shortlisted on a lot of these, Booker, and I think also on the Nobel thing. He's somewhere, one of those in those longer lists. So he obviously, he's got a really star writer on his, and not just Perumal Murugan, but even Salma, Rokaya. All these are really star writers who are on his catalog. So naturally, he is one of the best examples. But others have done well too. So, for instance, we were working closely with the Georgian embassy because they wanted to translate the Shota Rustavelli, Night in the Panther Skin, into multiple Indian languages. So a lot of the publishers also got this really, really generous grant from the Georgian government and their culture ministry to translate Shota Rustavelli into Marathi, Tamil,
the national epic.
Yeah. And it's really it's interesting because if you get a 500,000 rupee grant in India, I'm sure a lot of them would not have spent that much money translating it. So there's a neat little, buffer, So I think these things do make a difference. So similarly, we try to buy rights as a cluster, to buy international rights as a cluster. That didn't really work. Some people bought it together and some people bought it separately. But it's something that we aim to do. And I think... I can't really quantify it in terms, but I think it was a very useful collaboration in multiple kind of ways. And I think, for instance, we do not have those regular meetings now, but whenever something comes up, we do connect. All of us have these WhatsApp groups, and we have these. For instance, I'm here, and I've spoken to so many wonderful publishers here, and I think what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to create a bridge from whichever country I visit. I try and create a bridge from their languages into a multiple group of Indian languages, which is, that's what I'm doing now. I can't just be, because if I was to just represent, my own language, it would be Hindi, but it doesn't work like that. I cannot just be working for one language. I'm too old to, just be servicing one. I have to work for the whole, my brood. I'm like them mama. Yeah.
Now, when you actually talk about Indian languages, that includes English. So what happens with translation of these authors into English? Because from my perspective, I can see that there's more and more of that happening. And there are mainstream publishers who publish translations into English of Indian language authors. So where is that at now?
I think translations into English is really seeing a moment in India, because it's and also there were, of course, programs earlier, like in the 90s. There was Minnie Krishnan was doing a whole list of Indian language writers in translation, but it's changed from there. What's happened now is that we have really high quality translations coming out of because there was this great Granta edition, I think 95 or something, which really really sort of there was a very really poor review of what's being written in the Indian languages, and that I think had an effect for a couple of almost decades it's taken to wipe out that. It's almost 3 decades to since that particular Granta issue, where it was really like almost as if what's being written in the Indian languages is not worth even considering. But I think translators have grown. There's a kind of a whole rethinking on that in that sense, and I think some wonderful translations are coming out. We have some wonderful editors now at publishing houses like HarperCollins and Penguin India, and all these really big lay imprints who are investing in, because they realize now that translation is an important part of their list, and I think that is it's made a huge difference to books being selected for or shortlisted or longlisted for a lot of international awards, and I think that is giving it a momentum. And in fact, one of the projects I'm working on at the university is women's voices translated by women's voices from multiple Indian languages, fiction and narrative nonfiction, biographies. I have a wonderful project which is it's a prison diary from a Mizo woman who was incarcerated in the 70s and early 80s for insurgency, and she was and it's her diary which she had written, and which was just a pamphlet at that time, and which she had put all her writings as a way of appealing for her case to be heard. So she was writing these, and people were just printing those pamphlets and then sharing it and trying to make an appeal that she was innocent. And it's now coming together, getting translated. Imagine it's taken 40, 50 years for this to, be recognized as something that we need to know. Yeah. That there was this woman in the Northeast who was wrongfully at that time, because she was she was implicated because the ammunition was found buried in her garden, and then things like that, works which was just in her Mizo mother tongue, and we had no idea until Urvashi Butalia discovered it. Yeah. So we are now including that as part of our women's voices translated by women translators. So it's a lovely list of right now we have about 12 books in that list. So similarly, this is just one project. People are doing incredible translation projects across India. Yeah.
Well, my next question would be, how can these books then travel into European languages? What would be the conditions for that? What possible initiatives? But maybe also we should open it to up to the audience. If you have any questions, I'm just why I keep looking at my phone is that I'm trying to see what time it is, but it always doesn't always work. So I think we have about 10 minutes. Yeah. So over to you. Yeah.
Hi, thank you very much. It's so interesting to hear about this huge country with so many languages. I wondered if you had an initiative similar to what, although it's much more complicated in your case, but similar to what the BIEF, the French, does, with multiple publishers going in one stand. If you had thought about having publishers from the different linguistic regions come together to the various fairs in Europe under one stand and pooling your resources.
So we did try that, but it's just that, it is quite expensive for an Indian publisher. So even if we make it as cheap as possible, or we try and share it among a larger, it still costs around, 200 to 300,000 rupees to, if they buy the cheapest ticket and pay for that, plus your living costs when you're in Frankfurt or something like that. So it's not affordable, because some of these publishers are just about, they're breaking even, and they really pay good prices for, for instance, for acquiring rights from the international publishers. These are now no longer, those days where people would just publish books without acquiring rights. So these are, all of them are aware. Yeah, they're very professional. They're all buying rights internationally. And but it's just that they would rather spend that money in maybe investing in a better translator than traveling to. So a lot of times we try and tell them that no, if it's possible, apply for these fellowships, do something like that. So our job is to keep giving them the opportunities, and then it depends if they feel it's worth it. Because I know we are dealing with with a level of I mean, it's not such an economically viable. At times, it's not so economically viable. No, there is no. There used to be. There used to be a support for traveling to Frankfurt. There used to be. Since this government has come, it's taken away. I mean, books are not important at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to add that there are, at the larger book fairs, there is an India stand, there is a national stand, but you can't really see the publishers there. That's the problem. Yeah. So there's a kind of
it's just their friends and relatives. If you ask me, a lot of times the India stall. I've never heard of those publishers in India. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I have to say that the only initiative like this that worked, and it actually helped me make contacts with Indian publishers right at the beginning, 15 years ago, was actually at the Abu Dhabi Book Fair. Because of the connection with the Frankfurt Book Fair, the head of the German Books Office in Delhi actually managed to get money from the Frankfurt Book Fair to bring publishers to Abu Dhabi. And that's how I met them, the important ones, the ones who, do the fantastic work. And so there was a collective stand, which was really funded by, by Frankfurt or Goethe. Yeah,
that's true. That was a nice phase when they were, but it's closed now. The German Book Office is now closed in India. So it is the French Book Office supports. I mean, for the Salon du Livre, I think there was a fellowship which they put out for the Indian publishers, and I think they were going to support about 4 or 5 or I don't know how many publishers. To travel to France, people who've never been before, and they also support, I think, the publishers who translate books from French to the Indian languages. They support some of them to travel back and showcase their work. So the French Book Office definitely supports the Frankfurt, the fellowship. People do take advantage of the fellowship, and I know every year there are at least 1 or 2 fellows who go from India in the under the 30s or something. They have a young publishers, early career publishers fellowship. So every year at least 2 or 3 publishers from India do go for that. So but those are mostly publishers from the English language publishing industry. But whenever I get a chance, I tell these somebody in Kannada, or there's one girl who's just started a publishing house in Telugu. I keep telling them and sending them literally all the fellowships which are opening up so that they can apply. Some of those fellowships you have to still pay for the ticket, but if your hospitality or something is taken care of, I encourage them to. But yes, it is quite It is not easy, but it's there's a lot of wonderful work which can come out of this kind of collaboration with Europe, especially because I think we share most of our the kind of dynamics in terms of also the writing, the translations. I think there would be a lot more that Indian languages or literature in the Indian languages would share quite easily with literature in the European languages. And I'm not sure if we even have Greek books translated in Indian languages. I don't think so. In the recent years, we have we have Kawafi, and we have the older, more classical, Homer, but but not the new, the writers that I see at Agra and a lot of these publishing or Hestia. And, I don't think there are that many translations from Greek. Yes.
Terra incognita,
Yeah.
which is why your presence here is very interesting, because it opens doors, it opens windows to areas that we know them traditionally. They have excellent cultural heritage, but we don't know a lot about the modern culture, the modern literature of India. What are the subjects that are mainly interesting, or they are tackled by writers, for example? As an example, the Arabic literature is more oriented towards trauma and this kind of themes, more or less. There are, of course, all kinds of themes, but more oriented towards after the past or pro-colonialism or after-colonialistic eras, and also the clashes. What about India?
I think if you look at very contemporary work, it's quite global. The concerns are quite global. If you look at the more traditional, the women's writing, it's of course, there's a kind of a, like a home and the world, the clashing of, the women. For Indian women, even today, it's quite conservative, the atmosphere. For most Indian women, let's say, not women who are in the cities have a much easier lifestyle, but they're still grappling with a lot of issues of, gender. And so that is a strong part of the women's writing. I think biographies or, these kind of, there is a sort of a growing trend towards writing of biographies in the languages as well. And even historical fiction, a lot of historical fiction. But what happens is none of this is traveling abroad. What is traveling abroad is just yoga and, and Ayurveda and, I don't know, spirituality, gurus. No, so we have a lot beyond that. So which is a pity that, these things just don't, this is something that I'm working on. So fingers crossed, we're going to, yeah.
Hello, thank you. I'm coming from Istanbul. I'm an author and representing a publishing house in Turkey, which is called Yeni İnsan. We have some sponsorship programs in Turkey. If you would like to participate in a book fair, Istanbul Book Fair, or other book fairs in Turkey, you can apply for a fellowship program, and you can be supported. One of them is that, and the second one is there's another one which is called Tata program, and if you would like to translate any books from Turkey into your own language, then the translation is sponsored by the Minister of Culture of Turkey. So just ideas for India and the world.
Yeah. Thank you. So in fact, yes, I think Turkish literature is quite popular. I have to say Turkish television shows. Oh my God. They are so popular in India. So, yeah. Yeah. But it is very popular. So Turkish literature as well. I think there is a lot of translations. Mehmet is here. Nermin has been working really closely with a lot of Indian publishers. And so we have multiple translations of Turkish literature in a lot of Indian languages now. So yes, I think with Turkey we have a very good relationship in the literary sphere.
Yeah, even the ambassador of Turkey is a writer, the ambassador to India, and in Turkey was the guest of honor at the Kerala Literature Festival, I think 2 years ago. So there is a lot of contact. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think this is it. We have to finish here. Thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you, Nita.
Thank you.
And let's have some applause. Thank you.